Well, hello and welcome to episode 89 of In the Growth Space. I'm David McGlennon and I'm your host. This podcast is really all about exploring and examining what it takes and what it means and really how to grow. And there are a lot of aspects of our lives where we grow or where we atrophy. There's the growth aspect of our business or the growth aspect of our professional life. There's growth aspect around our personal life too, and really growth around our leadership and then how that feels and what it looks like and what it sounds like. So one of our goals then for this podcast, it really is to share stories of people who have gone on their own growth journey and then we can perhaps just see ourselves in their story as we work out our own and as we hear their story. And I love to bring leaders on to the podcast and entrepreneurs on the podcast who really just walk the talk. And I know that today's guest, her name is Tasha Scott, she certainly does that. She walks the talk. She's an unconventional voice of wisdom for today's leaders. She's been a full-time entrepreneur for over 20 years. And her own experiences in life and in business fuel her passion and her dedication to helping leaders to reach their full potential and then pay it forward to a world in need. And you're going to hear that passion in our conversation together today. She really has an amazing story of how she's built several businesses, and she's going to share her story with us today. Well, hey, Tasha, welcome to In the Growth Space. Gosh, I am really excited to have you on, and I'm excited to have the audience hear from you because I know you've been on an amazing growth journey and really excited to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too, Tasha. So I know that you've been an entrepreneur for probably most of your life, right? And so I would love to kind of have you share where did that start? And maybe what was your first entrepreneurial endeavor? Because I know that story just a little bit and I'd love to have you share it. I think it's great.
Yeah. So for me, it was early on. I had a paper route, and this was back in the day where you literally delivered papers door to door and then had to pick up the money and you got commission. Part of it was paper company, part of it was mine. That was in the 8th or 9th grade. Oh, and man. I knew back then, David, that I was born to be an entrepreneur. It was in my blood.
That's awesome.
And so fast forward, I ended up, going through life and getting jobs. So I ended up being a paralegal at a law firm. Yeah. And that's actually when I started my second business, and it was called Timely Task. It was an administrative support service where I literally could do everything: transcribe, clean your office, organize, everything. But one of my mentors was like, Tasha, you're going to burn yourself out. You need a niche. And I was like, but I'm making money, Right. So I literally just picked out what is the thing that I'm doing that I could be lucrative in. And so transcription was one of them. So I went to my local trade school that had medical transcription and court reporting and went through the admissions process. And she looked at my resume and said, why don't you consider being a court reporter, because they make more money? And I was like, oh yeah, nice. That's it right there. Sign me up.
More money. Yeah, I like more money.
So I did. I enrolled, and 3.5 years later, I graduated. 6 months after that, I started my third business, which was Scott Real-Time Reporting. And I found my niche in that industry, which I did captioning for deaf and hard of hearing students. My clients were colleges, universities, and state agencies. And that business, when I started that one, was very lucrative. The very first year I made a goal. I said, I will make $100,000 this year. And I did.
That's awesome. Did. That's awesome.
But what I didn't plan for was the growth. And so there's lessons to be learned in everything, right? So fast forward, in the midst of that business, after it had gone on for a while, I had gotten up to 20 subcontractors. it was looking really good on paper, but I was not where I needed to be personally. So that's when I
Mm,
discovered the world of coaching
yeah.
and got a life coach who happened to be a counselor. And halfway through our sessions, I started literally healing, growing, developing.
Mm,
And I said, I wonder how many other entrepreneurs out here are struggling on the inside, but it looks good on the outside. And that's when I
yeah.
answered the call to training and development and coaching.
Nice, nice. That's so cool. What so something must have been within you to like just learn and grow. And so where did that come from? Where did that curiosity and that growth mindset come from? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, so I always say my first leader was my dad because my dad
Yes.
was in the military and
Ah.
he was an officer in the military, but he also was a pastor. So
Oh,
I'm a
okay.
PK and an Army brat.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, what a combination, man. That's
Right.
great.
And I think just the drive, my dad, if he's watching this, thank you for the lessons. He
Absolutely.
literally would do things like white glove inspections at
Oh
home.
my
Like we have to
gosh.
clean our room.
Yeah.
And the night that I graduated high school, my dad said rent is due on the first. So, so
Oh my gosh. I've heard stories like this. Yes.
yeah, he instills like leadership, growth, development.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, once I moved out, I never had to go back home, but I think
Yeah.
he was my first leader and mentor and coach.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that cool though?
Mhm.
I think that that's such an amazing blessing to have when you have a father who teaches you and is really
Yeah,
involved in your life and is
yeah.
helping you to learn some of those life lessons as you go along. I'm sure that was probably what you experienced as you went through your childhood even.
For sure, for sure. And I tell you, I'm still like my work ethic, I would definitely contribute to all of the things we had to do back then.
I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that you have a passion for growth and you have, just continued to grow and your company now is continuing to grow. And you're
Mhm.
at that we were talking before we started rolling, you're actually adding some team members and talk a little bit about that for a second. Like, what is that like? What is that feeling like? Because you're like right in it right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, right before this, we started recording. You asked me how I was doing, and I was like, I'm like this right now.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to have a dream to go after, start a business and all of that, but when that business starts to grow and it's bigger than you, the dream is bigger than you know that you
Hmm.
need help.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's scary because it feels like I'm losing control, but at the same time I know it's necessary to add
Yeah.
people to this dream because the dream can't live without it, can't live just me by myself.
That's
So
right.
it's a roller coaster of emotions, you
Yeah.
know but having conversations with people like you, having my support team, my coaches, my mentors, that literally is what is helping me right now to
Mhm.
grow through this process, you know?
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think
and
it's important.
yeah, talk about that, the importance too of having your own, mentors and, masterminds or growth opportunities, growth communities around you. Talk a little bit about that. How important is that for you?
Yeah, that was one of the lessons that I learned in that court reporting business because ambition was not the problem.
Hmm. Yeah.
know, effort and all that was not the problem. Like I said, that first year I hit the six figures,
Yeah.
but I did not have a coach. I didn't have a mentor back then.
Mm.
So literally, when I say I didn't plan for the growth, I literally was self imploding from the
Uh,
inside out. I
mm,
didn't, there was a lot of things that I just didn't know or
mhm.
didn't embrace. So
Yeah.
after that whole experience, I'll be honest, I went from the six figures um, business has always been a constant, but ended up filing bankruptcy because I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
have a plan for the growth. It wasn't
Oh,
about
yeah.
making money, it was about managing not just the
Oh,
money, but
yeah.
managing my life. And
Hmm.
after that experience, that's when I reached out to my first mentor. And this was
Mm.
a lady who was older than me, who had experience. And I'll tell you, from her forward, I have never been without a support team or a support person. It has
Oh,
made
yeah.
all the difference in my life and my
Hmm.
business.
Yeah, wow. Well, and it sounds to me too like you've been really open to that input in your life. And I know that there are some entrepreneurs who aren't. And I
Yeah.
guess to me, what that shows me is that when you're open to others speaking into your life and that support system around you,
Yeah.
it's really helps you to grow in a way that is sustainable.
Absolutely. You know, the saying that says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yes.
This is what I've learned over the years, is to always surround myself with strengths that overcompensate my weaknesses. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've always looked at it through that lens. I don't know everything.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Me either.
shocker. You know, and so sometimes if we're not careful, if we don't allow people in, allow people to support us, people can put us on a pedestal, you
Right.
know, like we're accomplishing great things, yay, you know,
Uh-huh.
but just the applause alone is not enough. You know, I need
That's
people that
good.
will call me out.
Yeah. Yes.
You
Oh,
know.
no doubt. Me too. Me too. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's, and that's so good. But I know you too have been really intentional about your growth plan and your growth path.
Sure.
And I think I think that to me is really admirable. When I come across someone like that, that's why I wanted you to have you on the
Yeah.
podcast, is because I love sharing that with the audience, because I know that my audience, some are emerging leaders, and some are
Yeah.
either even executive leaders who are both growing through their growth path and going through their growth path. And I
Mhm.
like the intentionality piece about it. And so I know one of the things that I wanted you to talk about a little bit, at least, is Turning Point, because that was an
Okay.
intentional growth path for you.
Ooh.
And you and I met for the first time there, and
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool, because you have some really cool things to share. So I guess let me ask this first: why did you come to Turning Point, and what led you there?
Yeah. So I saw Turning Point. Somebody shared it on Facebook like 3 years ago. I think maybe
Uh-huh.
that was the last
That was the
one.
last time it happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So somebody from the John Maxwell Team community, I saw it on her page and I was like, wow, that looks amazing. I would
Yeah.
love to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, I said, if that ever comes back around, I'm signing up for it. Well, lo and behold, I happened to see it. I think it was on Paul Martinelli's page.
Yeah.
I happened to see it and it was a no-brainer for me to
Mhm.
sign up. I
Yeah.
needed to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I guess when you saw it, what was it about the event that said, I need to be there? What was it about it?
I love a challenge.
Nah.
On on the disc personality, if anyone's familiar with that, I'm a DI. So I
Mhm.
live for the thrill. I live for the challenge. And it kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier. Sometimes you could be celebrated for your mediocrity,
Wow.
you know,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
found myself in that space, not blaming anyone, but I just found myself in this space where everybody, well, when I say everybody, a lot of people were like praising me and saying, oh my God, you're doing amazing, you're doing this, you're doing that. And I was like thinking to myself, this really ain't like like I was literally feeling like a fraud because I knew that I was sitting on potential.
Mhm.
Business was natural for me, and
Yeah.
what looked great in the eyes of everyone else just felt mediocre to me. And
Mhm.
when I saw all of the challenges and all of that stuff through the pictures and videos, I was like, I need that. I need a turning point, you
Oh, yeah.
know, and not because I'm chasing a thrill or chasing a challenge. I literally was like, who am I really? How can I get out of my own way and not
Mm.
just settle for the praise and the applause for what people see?
Gosh, Tasha, that's so amazing. I love that. I really love that, because to me, that speaks to your desire for excellence and your desire to continue to just follow that growth. And
Yeah.
Paul talks about that energy, it expresses and expands. And I think that that's what you were feeling within yourself, is that expression and wanting to expand. And I
Yeah.
really love that. And I really love the fact too, that because there's a lot of entrepreneurs who think that they can do it on their own.
Right.
But in reality, the ones who are super successful have a community around them. And I love that you shared that, because that community around us is really what helps to continue to propel us forward, especially if it's the right community, if it's the right one that's going to help us to move forward, right?
That part, because like I just said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to, on purpose, surround ourselves with people who are better than us, who are at different levels than us, if we want to grow up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I remember saying one time to one of my mentors here, I said, I feel like I don't fit in, because I felt like I was trying to lower myself to fit in instead of just excelling. And it was because I was not intentional about surrounding myself with people who were higher than me.
Yeah.
And so she said to me, she said, Tasha, she said, you don't fit in.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
You don't fit in. Stop trying to fit in. She said, show us the way. But while you're showing us the way, make sure that you have somebody helping you, along that path. And so I always made sure of that in any season of my life, I need somebody who's down the road from me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's so good. Something you said a minute ago, I wanted to ask you about, because a lot of times when I'm working with emerging leaders, and quite frankly, executive leaders too, you said, I at one point you felt like a fraud, and I know that there's a lot of times that executive leaders have the struggle with the inner critic. Sometimes it's called imposter experience or imposter syndrome. Yeah. How did you deal with that? And what would you say to an emerging leader or an executive leader who struggles with that too? Because I think that when we're in that room with a lot of smart people, it can come up. I'll admit, I'll raise my hand. It comes up for me, because I think the first time I was in the empowered living community, and I was like in person, like my inner critic came up like, woo, what am I doing in this room?
So you want me to be honest?
Like, absolutely. Yes. This is in the growth space. We got to be perfectly honest here.
Yeah. So how I deal with it, I'm still dealing with it.
Yes.
But I have this sign. Do you see this sign over my shoulder?
Yeah.
It says, do it afraid.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm literally having to do. In the face of fear, palms sweaty, heart beating fast, I'm having to do it afraid. And what I have to do is, as long as I'm moving forward in the face of fear, that fear will turn into strength.
Right.
It will.
Right.
And the other thing is I've had to learn is, and Brene Brown has this whole thing about vulnerability, is somebody, I heard a pastor say this one time, somebody needs to see the real me at all times.
Yeah.
Somebody, I have to be honest with somebody, to be able to say, right now I'm afraid. Right now, I'm not as confident. And there's something powerful about just being able to speak your truth, because if not, what'll happen is we'll walk around feeling like we have to have it all together. We have to be perfect. We can't let anybody see us sweat. Yeah. And I think that is just crazy. Yeah. And here's the thing, when I say it out loud to someone else in my safety circle, I'm saying it out loud to me.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. That's really, really good. Well, and what was coming up for me as I was listening to you talk about doing it afraid. So I was part of the group that when you were doing the ropes course. Yeah. And you were up on that platform, and it was a leap of faith kind of a thing. Yeah. And I'm curious to hear, like, how did you do that afraid? Because you were up on this little platform. I'll just describe it for people. So you climbed up a ladder, and then you climbed up some pegs on a tree. And then there's this, and I don't even know how far up, 30 feet, maybe 40 feet. It was, it's a ways up, and you're on this little platform, and your task is to jump out over to this trapeze, like bar. Right. And so, like, what came up for you in that moment? Because I was there, I was watching you, and I was like, to myself, I'm thinking, oh dear God, I'm glad I'm not up there right now. So you were brave. You're my hero, Tasha.
Oh man. Well, let me just say 7 minutes. That's how long that whole process, 7 minutes, my whole life flashed before my eyes.
Oh,
The process, literally, when we were walking to the station, I think Martin was walking with me, and I looked up and I literally was like, oh my God, and to be honest, I said, oh, hell no.
Yes, exactly. I
I was
know.
like, and he heard me and he challenged me. He said, you have to do it and you have to go first. And I was like, are you
That's
kidding
awesome.
me?
That's
And so
awesome.
because he challenged me, of course, I'm not backing down from the challenge.
That's exactly right. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so I climb up the tree. And here's the thing, climbing up the tree, though it was a challenge, it wasn't the hard part. This
Mm-hmm.
was me just being challenged. When I got up there, here's the crazy part, depth perception. When you're looking up at that thing, it's actually close. It looks closer on the ground, but when you actually get up there, it's further away. And so when I first saw it, my first thing was like, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And I remember saying out loud out of my mouth, it's too far away. And then
Mm.
this is what got me is when Andy said to me, he said, Tasha, think about the work that you did yesterday when we had to write out our dreams.
Mm.
What's your dream? That thing right there represents your dream. That's when I lost it. I started crying.
I know. I
Because
know. It's
all I
beautiful.
saw was, and I'll tell you what my dream was, to love myself back to life, to be
Mm.
confident. And so then it was like, but that's impossible. What if I miss? What if I let myself down? Like now it's not even about the trapeze anymore. It's about me. And I'm literally struggling with all of my emotions. Like,
Mm.
you've been there for everybody else, Tasha, and now you're here and you can't even be there for yourself. It's like so much went through my head.
Yeah.
And then when Peter, the
Mm.
guy that was on staff, he
Yeah.
literally was the voice of God. I promise you.
It's amazing. I know they are so amazing at
Oh
Sojourn.
my gosh, because
Shout
when
out to Sojourn Adventures. If
yes.
anybody wants a great experience, Sojourn Adventures in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mhm.
Amazing. Yeah. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but go
No,
ahead.
that's okay. They needed that.
Yeah.
What Peter said to me is what changed my mindset. He said, Tasha, he said, whether you make it or you don't with that hitting that trapeze, he said, I've got you. He said, no matter, he said, all that's required of you is to do the technical steps to try.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and he literally was like, you can either, and what's even cool is he even asked me, he was like, do you want my help or do you want me to be quiet? He didn't
Mm-hmm.
force himself on me. And so he's talking me through this. And he was like, all you have to do is try. And so he literally helped me to take that leap.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was going to hit a tree or something when I jumped. But the lesson that I learned in all of that is all you have to do, Tasha, is try.
Mm-hmm.
Not you might miss it the first time. You might get it wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
all you have to do is try and learn and keep moving. That was the whole lesson I got from that for my whole life.
Yes. Endeavor to live the life, right? Endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you were sharing that, Tasha, I had goosebumps because because I was there and I saw it and I was reliving the emotion that I saw within you, and that you could almost see the mind going as you were processing it.
Yeah.
And to hear Peter, him facilitate you and walk you through that was masterful as well. And
Yeah.
I think that too often we get into these situations where we get scared and we feel the fear and it
Yeah.
paralyzes us and we hold back.
Right.
And I guess the thing that I want to share with the leaders listening is that we have to learn to just do it and do it afraid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do it afraid.
Right.
And yes, we're gonna fail and it's
Yeah.
okay. It
Yeah.
is okay.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that you said, and I guess this is a point that maybe I just want to bring out too for our listeners, is that
Yeah.
what Martin said to you is I think the value of being around people who want the best for us. I mean,
Yes.
here's a guy from Slovakia, right, halfway around the world, and being able to say, look, you've got this, and you got to do this, and you've got to do it first. I mean,
Yeah.
challenging you, having the people around you that challenge you, and then that support you in like Peter did, like Andy did. That's just beautiful. What would you say are maybe like your top 2 or 3 takeaways from Turning Point? What are you using right now as you manage your growth in your business? What are you using?
So definitely those, it was actually 4 R's that Paul talked about: the responsibility, the resentment, the resistance, and the revenge.
Mm-hmm.
I literally have even included those and shared those with my clients and in trainings. The fact that my life is my responsibility. And I can't give my responsibility away. My business is my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be lazy in that. And then when he talked about that whole resentment, resistance, and revenge, I literally have every day have had to check my heart to say, where has resentment shown up today? How has resistance showed up? Maybe it was through procrastination. Maybe it was through second guessing myself about showing up for an interview or whatever. And letting forgiveness flow, letting go of all things against, whether it's a person, whether it's a circumstance. But that was probably, out of all of it, was powerful. That really resonated with me. And then the funeral service.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
For those of you who haven't been to Turning Point, this is probably one of the most impactful sessions of the event. So I'm gonna like pause you there for just a second, because I don't want you to give it all away, because that's no, it's good. But it really is impactful. And I guess it's so funny because one of our mutual friends, Karen, she was like telling Andy and I, like beforehand, like everybody like speaks in code, and there's like the secret language about Turning Point. And like there's some mystery behind it, but it's because we want that transformation, and it is so powerful. And what's interesting is like, even just hearing your story about using the 4 R's and checking yourself, to me, it's like that's the part of the transformation that happens just beyond the event. It's not just about going to an event, getting all pumped up and, rah, rah, and then we're going to kind of get back into real life.
Right.
But no, this is about, and Turning Point in particular is about transformation, which doesn't happen always immediately. Sometimes it does, but not always, but it's a process. And I think that you probably would attest to this, that transformation happens over some time, and it's something that you have to work on over and over again.
Yeah, I like to think of it like Turning Point was, when you're on the table and they have the paddles and they say clear, and then they pump the heart again. That's what Turning Point did for me. I literally feel like I'm living again, because before Turning Point, I was tolerating life. I wasn't celebrating life. I wasn't showing up fully. When I got back Monday, I have a Monday morning huddle with my virtual team. I literally had to apologize to them and say, I haven't been all in, y'all. I said, but from here on out, I am taking responsibility for not just for myself, but for this business, for the direction that we're going in. And I shared my experience with them, and they were blown away and grateful at the same time.
That's so cool. Well, and so like, what does this mean for your business then? What does your personal growth mean for your business?
Yeah, Paul said it best. He said, your dream is fighting for its life right now. And that's what I felt like. My business, I've coasted on word of mouth referrals, thank goodness for them, but now it means I have to be more intentional about growth, even in that, and so now my business stands a chance of becoming more healthier because I'm healthier.
Oh, yeah. I love that you kind of made that connection, because I think that for a lot of the leaders who are listening to this, they may not necessarily get that, because I think that there's this myth that, it doesn't matter what's happening within me. I just got to keep going, and I got to keep, working till my eyeballs bleed. And that's just not true. It's we've got to be healthy, and
Yeah.
the transformation begins in me, and then
Right.
I can transform my team and my company. And when I
Yeah.
do that, then there's a lot of things that can be possible.
Right. And then some action steps that I've taken is
Yeah.
to finish building out my solid support team, because, as you
Yeah.
grow, some people have to, you have to exchange certain support members for others,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
That's part of your evolution. So outside of Turning Point, I've hired a new business coach. I have a counselor that I
Yeah.
meet with. I actually have a life coach too, but I'm getting ready to hire an executive assistant that's assigned to me. I have team members that are virtual that do great things for the business, but I don't
Yeah.
have anybody assigned to me specifically.
Mm.
So I'm really solidifying, that's the best word. I'm
Yeah.
solidifying my support team even more, and really solidifying the foundation even more. Though growth has been great, there's still more for us.
Yeah, that's so great. That is so great. Well,
Yeah.
if you were to, just think about your growth journey and kind of just sharing with a business leader today, what's the biggest thing that you would say has helped you to grow the most, both personally and as well as your business? What would that be? What would, if there is just one thing? I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than one.
I would say honesty.
Interesting.
And the reason why I say that is because we can fool most of the people some of the time, but we can't fool ourselves.
Yeah, no doubt about
And
it.
there's a new term that I've just learned about, and it's called radical acceptance.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's about accepting the reality that's in front of us, and not from a negative standpoint, but from the standpoint to say, if I acknowledge this, then I can deal with this. And I have
Yes.
this saying that says, you can't heal what you're not willing to reveal. And
Yeah.
so if we put ourselves in workaholic mode, if we self-sabotage, then there's a deeper root,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
we have to be honest about where we are, who we are, so that we can allow the help that we really need in.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Tasha. Yeah, and
Mhm.
I couldn't agree more. I know that the biggest thing for even my own transformation, I think I even shared part of it from stage, was the just
Yeah.
the realization and kind of that radical acceptance of being like, okay, you know, I'm at the place where I'm at, and
Yeah.
so now I gotta go from here. What's the first thing that I need to do next? And I
Yeah.
didn't try to figure out everything all at once, because then I would
Right.
have really truly imploded. But
Right.
but recognizing it at first and just
Yeah.
understanding where was I, and going, okay, this is the situation I'm in. Now here's where I need to go forward.
Yeah.
And I really think that, and to the listeners, one of the things that I taught on at Turning Point was the Henry David Thoreau quote. And
Yes.
it was, I mean, it's been so impactful for me, even as I prepared for Turning Point and
Yeah.
studied it and marinated in it, because there's so much to this like one sentence quote that it for those of you who are watching or listening, it basically just says, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavors to live the life they have imagined, they will meet with success unexpected in common hours. So that's
Yeah.
the quote.
Yeah.
There's so much to that when you really start taking it apart and thinking about just advancing confidently. And that's how we use the ropes course to be able to help us to advance even in the face of fear. And then
Yeah.
being able to just meet with success, kind of on any given Tuesday, as I said. And
Yeah.
it's kind of wild, because sometimes that happens. It's kind of like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that came out of quote unquote thin air. Um,
Right.
but it's amazing what happens when we lean into that fear, we lean into that discomfort, and we really push through that terror barrier
Yes.
and walk into expansion of our comfort zone so that we can grow. And it really
Yeah.
is, I think, such an important component of our growth.
Yeah, and I loved how you broke that down. I've heard that so many times, but the way that you broke it down, and then Andy giving the backstory,
Yeah.
I will never look at that the same again. And it is so like, I don't know any other way to say it, but just powerful, you know?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you. That's great. Well,
Mhm.
and what's interesting is if you read the quote and you look at, so there's in like the next paragraph, there's
Mhm.
a little section, and this part I don't have memorized, but basically he says something like, if you have castles built in the air, um, it's okay to leave them there. And what he's saying there is that sometimes our dream takes a little time to come into into the real physical world. And so oftentimes we give up. It's kind of like we give up 3 feet from gold, as
Yeah,
Napoleon Hill might say
yeah.
in Think and Grow Rich.
Mhm.
But there's this the law of gender, this gestation period for our dreams and our goals. And so oftentimes we think that it doesn't come instantly, and so then we just kind of give up. And so
Right.
for those of you listening, I just want to encourage you that if you got a dream, if you're working on a goal, and if it's a big goal, a big dream, let it sit there a little while. It's okay. It's not that it's not going to happen. It's just that it hasn't happened yet. So I just want to encourage our
That's so
listeners.
good. That's so
Well,
good.
Tasha, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you really wanted to share with the listeners? And I'm so grateful for you being here, because this is such a great story.
Oh my gosh, we could talk for a whole nother hour, but
I know, it's awesome.
um, I will just say this. If you have never been to Turning Points and you're curious now, don't hesitate to take the leap of faith, invest in yourself. You are worth the investment,
Mm.
and so I would just I'm a fan, I'm a cheerleader. I'm actually going to bring my daughter will be 16 in July.
Love it.
But because Camille had her kids there, and
Yes.
I told my daughter, I said, I want you to experience this before you graduate high school, and she wants to come.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic. Well, I can tell you that things are in the works for the next one. Don't have it, set in stone yet, but they are in the works. So,
Love
uh,
it.
yeah, I'm sure those people who have subscribed to the channel, to the podcast, have
Mhm.
heard me talk about Turning Point probably till they're sick of it. But man, I'm telling you, it's an impactful event, and I just wanted to be able to bring somebody on who's gone through it and has
Yeah.
an experience. But not just that.
Mhm.
Your entrepreneurial growth journey has been so impactful, and I'm so inspired by the way that you're continuing to go towards excellence and continuing to grow,
Yeah.
because I love being around people like that. And quite frankly, here on the podcast, that's why I have people on, so that I can continue to be inspired and grow as well.
I
So
love it.
thank
I love
you. Thanks
it.
for being on.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
It's such a great entrepreneurial story, and I love hearing where an entrepreneur's journey starts with a paper route. That takes a lot of discipline, and that, for a young person, that's a tough first start. But what a great first start, right? And I loved how she described the feeling of growth, that she knew she needed help, but losing control was part of the part that she was grappling with, and really just that roller coaster of emotions. I know that we've all felt those roller coaster of emotions as we go through growth. The other thing I think is really important that she shared was that growth communities are really so important. It's so important to have people around us that help us to really speak life into us, and to surround ourselves with people who are strong when I'm weak, and who are strong where I'm weak. And really just managing growth is another aspect of how we have to lean into our entrepreneurial journey, and it's really an important skill to master. The other thing that I found really fascinating that she said was, don't allow yourself to be praised for mediocrity. Man, that's powerful. And I think it's also a testament to having people around you who won't praise you for mediocrity. They want the best for you. They want you to be challenged. They want to challenge you. And so being intentional with your growth is very important. And being intentional with who you surround yourself with is really important. Now, I also loved hearing her story about Turning Point, because I was there. I was part of her group, and I loved hearing her talk about how she wanted to find out who she is. She said, I wanted to find out who I am. She loves a challenge, and Turning Point was that catalyst for her to be able to pull that out and help her to become aware of some things that she wanted to grow around. I know in the last episode with Andy Hall, he and I talked a lot about community and having community around us, having an inner circle around us. And so again, it's so important to have that community. One more thing that I think was really important that I drew out of the conversation with Tasha really was that what she had to say about imposter syndrome and really even moving through that. The one thing she said that was really key is that we have to do it afraid. We have to be afraid. We have to feel the fear, and we have to do it anyway. We need to move forward in the face of fear. I really love that. The other component too, there's one more thing that just kind of pops into my mind as I think about the conversation that we had here just with Tasha, is that just overcoming and breaking through fear meant that she also had to lean into the 4 R's that we taught about at Turning Point. Responsibility. What am I responsible for? Who's responsible? Resentment. Who am I holding resentment towards? And then who am I extracting revenge on? And where's the resistance in my life? And so responsibility, resentment, revenge, resistance, those are the 4 R's. And the other thing that she said was about honesty being a really big part of fostering growth, and being honest with ourselves and having other people be honest with us as well. So let me ask you, what did you take away from Tasha's story? I really want to hear that. And as I said at the outset of season 2, I want to make this really more of a two-way street. I'd love to hear more from you. And I would love for you to do me a favor and just send me a note. And you can shoot that to me at david@davidmcglennen.com. And just give me a quick note about what impacted you the most here in episode 89. And also, while I'm on that topic, if you would, just take just a moment, just one more moment to scroll to the bottom of your Apple podcast app and give us a 5-star rating. It would mean so much to us. We want to reach more people to share stories of growth and help people to grow into their full potential. I do really believe that there are so many more people that are stuck because they don't realize that they have the agency, that they can move forward into growth because they're paralyzed by fear. And so we want to remove that paralysis. So thank you for listening, and thank you for watching today. And I hope that you'll subscribe if you're not already. And you'll get a chance to hear our next episode 90. Wow, we're inching closer to that 100 episode mark. And we're going to have another amazing female entrepreneur. And so you're not going to want to miss it. And until then, keep growing and be well.